The Vikings are the Bills, and the Bills are the Vikings, always have been, and after last night's heartbreaker in Buffalo, that will continue for at least one more year. Both teams 0-4 in Super Bowls, and I prefer it that way. Yes, misery loves company. I am full of envy, jealousy. We already witnessed the Packers. They're going to be a problem for years to come. The Detroit Lions, they may very well end up playing in a Super Bowl. We don't also need the Buffalo Bills having a chance to shatter the mold and leaving the Vikings all by themselves. On one hand, I do feel bad for Buffalo. On the other, I don't. And here's why. The missed kick. The Vikings, they have wide left. The Bills, they have wide right. When you go back and think about wide left, and this is before I started the YouTube channel, a year before wide left, maybe a year and a half or so, I was on to Blair Walsh. I said, you know what? I don't trust this guy. I feel like he's going to screw up in a big moment. And it's one of those things where you ask yourselves or you ask others, where were you when wide left happened? And I can see it vividly in my apartment when we moved up to Northern California. And I said, oh, he's going to miss it. I think he's going to screw this up. And he did. Whereas wide right last night with the Buffalo Bills, I mean, Tyler Bass, as soon as the ball lifted up off of his foot, it was a direct kick. It was going straight, I would say, not center, but right center. And it was going to be good. Easy money. But, man, you want to talk about bad luck? The wind just took it and said, no thanks, get that mess out of here. That is just cruel beyond belief. I can't believe that actually happened. Tyler Bass may get blamed for it, but the wind was just too strong for him to overcome. I think the only way he would have made it is if he tried to purposely shank it left and the wind pushes it just barely through the goalpost. So I feel bad for them on that front. That's just, that you couldn't even make that up if you tried in the NFL script book, if it ever existed in the first place. On the other hand, I don't feel bad for Buffalo because of one particular player, Stefon Diggs, number 14, who, and I said this after the trade happened, I said, dude, you are an immature child. You are a child in a grown man's body. To where Bills fans, oh, they lit me up. It's one of those things where if you're a fan of a star player that just got traded to your team, and the fan base of the other team that he just came from is saying, hey, this player, he's X, Y, and Z. He's going to cause some problems. Well, if you're the fan base of the receiving team, you're like, you don't know what you're talking about. He's in much better hands with us. That's basically what Bills fans did to me. And I said, I'm telling you, man, it's going to blow up at some point. And after all the sideline antics, especially from last year, blowing up on the sidelines to his quarterback, Josh Allen, last night, down 27-24, Josh Allen throws an absolute bomb. I want to say 65 yards to Stefon Diggs in the fourth quarter. And straight through the hands. Could not be more perfect. It was essentially, talking about the Bills are the Vikings and the Vikings are the Bills, it was Tavares Jackson to Troy Williamson all over again. Not quite to a T, because Troy Williamson, I mean, there wasn't a defender at Mile High within 20 yards of him. Could not be more wide open. Diggs did have a defender on him, but still, he had his man beat, even if it was by a yard or half a yard, and the ball hit him right in the hands, and he dropped it. Down 27-24. That ended up being the final score of that game. So while people may focus on Tyler Bass and going wide right and not being able to send it into overtime, I would argue it was Stefon Diggs that should have been able to make that play. He wouldn't have scored a touchdown, but he would have put the Bills in great position to maybe score a touchdown with about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter to where you don't need to rely on a kick to send it into overtime. Maybe you just outright win the game. But Stefon Diggs, you could see this coming a mile away. And the fact, good Lord, did the Vikings win that trade. Every year that passes by, I'm like, hey, Rick Spielman, go ahead, pimp. You did your thing with that trade. Because that trade went from, or it turned Stefon Diggs into Justin Jefferson. And Stefon Diggs, I'm not going to say he's washed, but he's not the star player that he once was. Stefon Diggs, this season, played in all, going to the regular season, he played in all 17 games. And he amassed 1,183 yards. Playing all 17 games. Justin Jefferson, who missed 7 games, 109 yards short of what Stefon Diggs got. Missing 7 games. That's crazy. And in these playoffs, Stefon Diggs played in 2 games. In those 2 games, he combined for 10 catches, 73 yards. No touchdowns. And the cryptic tweets that are going to happen is one of those things where you go back in time. Stefon Diggs was, I would say, perfect for the Bills and their immediate contention for a title. But they weren't able to get it done, especially against the Chiefs team. This is the worst Kansas City Chiefs team that you have ever faced, and it was at your house. You should have won that game. Stefon Diggs should have made that catch, and he couldn't get it done, man. And he'll be 31 next year. Meanwhile, Justin Jefferson is just getting started. Can you imagine a 65-yard to Jefferson hits him right in the hands and he drops it? I can't imagine that ever happening. But you're getting your comeuppance. The Vikings are the Bills are the Vikings. But if nothing else, the Vikings, every year that goes by, they win that trade by a larger and larger margin by the season. Skull.